Chapter 19, the conclusion and God's message to women. And this is the last chapter of the book. The whole journey of life is for the sole purpose of knowing God, every moment of it. From your very beginning, God is working with you to inspire you with His ever presence, which centers you in your soul. Man has heard God's silent voice within him for millions of years, but he did not know what it was. He called it instinct. He did not even know that instinct was not only God's voice within his soul, but it was also an electric beam which guided and controlled the unfolding of all God's creations. Consciousness dawned in man, and he began to think with God's mind. God's mind talks to man through his soul. But in his early beginnings, he did not know what he thought with God's mind. For millions of years, he had but sensed with his body. He sought sensations for his body. He sought survival for his body. Then later, he sought possessions for his body. His entire sense of existence was through his body. He even sought happiness through his body, not knowing that the soul alone could know happiness and that it could never be found through sensations of the body alone. Genius dawned in man. He then knew the mind of man and mind of God were one. When God then talked to man, he knew that God talked to him, and he then talked with God. When God talked to early man through instinct, he but commanded him. When God and cosmic genius man talked together through inspiration, God then communed with him. When man thus knew God and communed with him, God sent messages through him to other men who did not know him. That has been God's way since man's beginning. Through those who know God, he sends inspired messages to those who do not know him to inspire them to know him. He first sends messages of his love and the rhythms of his love. Through his cosmic geniuses who know him, he slowly attunes the heartbeat of man's thinking to his mighty rhythms to draw men closer unto him. Beauty comes into the world through the heart of man, thus inspired with those mighty rhythms of God's universal thinking. The poets give God's messages to man. The builders of temples and the inspired man of God who chisels the symmetry and balance of beauty into white marble, these also give God's message to man to bring him ever closer to knowing God within his own soul. The prophets who knew God told men of his love. God spoke to messengers like Buddha, Zoroaster, and Muhammad who knew his voice and the meaning of it. He gave messages to them for his people. God gave the same messages to all their peoples, but they did not know that God spoke to them. God speaks to all creatures of his creation, but they do not know that he speaks to them. Birds do not know how to build nests or to fly south or why. God shows them how and directs their flight by polarity control. Spiders do not know how to build webs, nor to calculate their necessary stresses and strains. God works with them and tells them how. His presence centers the spider and ant to manifest his love with the same care that he gives to man. That is what is meant by God's omnipresence. God is everywhere, for mind is everywhere. Every particle of creating matter and every forming body are centered by the soul mind from within to control it, and two so-called magnetic poles are extended from that center to guide and balance it. Just as the center of gravity and the two poles of this earth balance and control its every movement and relationship to other planets, so is man centered and controlled. Man can defy that control if he desires to do so, but his defiance is costly to him in many ways. In animals and the elements of matter which living bodies are created from, there is no defiance of that law, hence nature is always in balance. We have heard much about revelations having been given to prophets and saints of olden days. God's revelations are just as much a part of today's communion between man and God as they ever were. God reveals himself to you and to all of us every moment of our lives. You suddenly know something which you did not know 1 minute before. It comes to you in a timeless flash. That is God telling you what you have desired to know. That desire to know is a wordless prayer which you do not even know that you have uttered, but God knows of your desire and extends the answer to you through his thinking. That is what revelations are. You are constantly being enriched by revelations from God. You may not know it yet. That is the slow process of your unfolding from your dark to his light. Aeons pass before men become aware of it. There are those, however, who have become aware of it, and they give their knowing of God's message to man. When God revealed himself to Moses and told him to lead his people out of Egypt, he also revealed himself to all of Moses' people. They did not know it, however, but Moses did, for Moses knew God's silent voice and fully comprehended its meaning. He therefore told those who did not know God's voice what God had commanded them to do. That is what is meant by being a messenger to man from God. There have been many messengers who have brought beauty and love to their fellow men, but as yet all too few have become aware of the mighty rhythms and whisperings of God's silent voice speaking to them from his kingdom of heaven within their soul. If you do not talk to God as you work with him, it is because you do not know that you can. That is the only reason. You can talk to God this moment if you will but believe you can and deeply desire to. He talks to you through your soul as he works with you to gradually awaken you to the light of his glorious presence. Why not desire to know God now as he works with you and you work with him to unfold your destiny? Someday you will become aware of that wonderful fact that you can talk to God as he has forever talked with you while he has been working with you. You will then work more intelligently with him when you know that you are working with him instead of not knowing it. That day must someday come to you. Why not begin now, knowing that he is awaiting that day when you will know the joy and ecstasy of his presence within you? That is what the words in the divine Iliad message mean, which say, "All men will come to me in due time, but theirs is the agony of waiting." Such men as Beethoven, Mozart, Brahms, Leonardo, or Whitman knew that they could talk to God as he worked with them, and they brought rhythmic messages of beauty from God to man in the language which all men can comprehend within their very soul. The whole world of men can talk to God directly if they but know that they can. They do not need Brahms or Beethoven to act as interpreter for them when they know that all of God's omniscient thinking is theirs when they will but tune in with it, as Brahms and Beethoven did. Omniscience is universal. Each man can know all things when he desires to know all things. Deep within my consciousness, I have known my destiny since childhood. I cannot remember a time that I did not talk to God, for he was the first one I told my thoughts to and later took my human problems to. God has always been more real to me than any human being could possibly be. Seeing such unhappiness in the world gave birth within me to a deep desire to share the knowledge of God's great love and direction with others. And so it was that God commanded me to give this message to you. Likewise, as all women desire to give love, I know there have been many down through the ages who have faintly heard God's whispering command to them to take their place as the world mother. This book is God's message to you. God has told you what you should do to save this civilization and cause it to endure. I can but do as I am commanded, for which every moment of my life is dedicated. I cannot execute the command alone, The mothers of the world can bring order out of chaos, unity out of disunity, and love out of fear if they will but take the empty seat beside the Father of the world home to give it a mother's love. I will close this message as I opened it to tell you that the 11th hour is here. You cannot wait lest the world perish. You must unite now by multiplying the power of your voice by millions before the next election. Chapter 12 has outlined the plan. Further details will follow at the end of this chapter. I will say to you, however, that when God plainly tells his children what to do with him to unfold his children's destiny, he will work with them to unfold it. Mankind desires peace and love and romance and beauty, and all peoples of the world desire joy in their hearts and the singing of hosannas in their homes. The world can have its desire fulfilled when it works with God, but not while it works against him. God made fathers and mothers in equally divided pairs in order that they could unite as equal pairs. God intended the male, aggressive, and progressive qualities, which construct the world home, should be balanced by the female qualities which give cohesiveness of love to the world home. Man has forever been taking life, woman has forever been giving life. The world family home can endure only by balancing the male-female qualities. God's silent voice has forever been telling the fathers and mothers of the world that peace, happiness, romance, and beauty can come only through their unity. There has never been unity between the fathers and mothers of the world. However, the world's desire for happiness can never be fulfilled until balance between the two equally divided mate pairs makes the desired unity possible. If the mothers of the world will but obey God's voice, and if the fathers of the world will but open their hearts to the balance of unity in world father motherhood, the peace which passeth all understanding will come to pass. Okay, and that's the end of the book. There's a little excerpt about the Walter Russell Foundation that's also in the book, and if you want, you can take a look at that in the PDF, but it's not a direct part of the book. So I'm going to leave it here. All right, we'll start on another book soon. Thanks.